All right, Shalom. I'd like to start out by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kodash. Welcome, all right, to another live lesson. The name of this one is simply Galatians Chapter 4. And this pretty much is a question that a brother left on the comment board. As you can see here, named Free Like Water. Can you please break down Galatians 4, please? So, in this lesson, just going to go through Galatians 4. It's a pretty straightforward chapter to break down. And as I was meditating on the chapter, you know, that chapter pretty much encompasses the law and grace, which pretty much the book of Galatians covers. And the law and grace, the Apostle Paul used the analogy or the history of Sarah and Hagar, you know, as a example of to be under the law was to be under captivity, to be under grace was to be under liberty. And that's pretty much what the chapter encompasses. Just like the law put us under bondage, Yahweh Shai liberated us from the law by becoming grace. But just because the Lord, you know, became a curse for us and took away the curse of the law, which is death, and gave us grace, does not mean that the law is done away with. And this is an ignorant statement that these people in the wacky-tacky churches, these plantation Christianity churches, teach that the law is done away with, and that's not the case. Because when you read the very next chapter of Galatians, in the 5th chapter, the Apostle Paul said, use not your liberty as a cloak of maliciousness. So what does that mean? That means the liberty, which is the grace, which is the Yahweh Shai dying on the cross to become a curse for us, to take away the curse of the law, that became to us grace, which meant a grace period, to where if we broke the law, we had the blood of Yahweh Shai to be able to have a remission for our iniquities. But at no point did the Lord say that the law was done away with. And if you don't keep the grace or the or this walk in the grace of Yahweh Shai, then you will be under the law, which means you have no grace, you have no cloak, you have no freedom, so to speak. You know, and that's a very thin line, you know, on a very controversial topic, you know, when it comes to dealing with these wacky-tacky Christians. And you brothers that's been out there, you know, on the front lines in the streets, you know, teaching, or on your videos and stuff, you know that that's one of the battles that we always battle with these so-called Christians, is that they say the law is done away with. We tell them no. But then they turn around and erroneously accuse us of saying that you have to keep the whole law in order to be saved, which shows that they do not listen. They do not listen. We are rehearsing the righteous acts. Matter of fact, let's start off there real quick. Let's go to Judges chapter 5, verse 11. It says, they that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the place of drawing waters. The place of the archers is symbolic for those missiles. And the land, or the place of drawing waters, represents America, which was a place of slavery. So those that are delivered, that are part of the elect in America, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, meaning that we're going to keep the righteous acts of the Lord to the best of our abilities, and we're also going to tell them to the people, you know, to keep it to the best of their ability. Even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel, then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates. So pretty much The laws are not done away with, but what we're doing is we're rehearsing the righteous acts. We keep it to the best of our ability because we know it's impossible to keep the law perfect. This is why Yahushua came, to be able to take the slack where we come short. Because the scriptures say that all have sinned and come short of the glory of the Lord. And Galatians, the 4th chapter, starts off with, now I say, 4:1, now I say that the heir, who is the heir? The Israelites. But if you have an heir of a noble family, as long as he is a child, as long as he doesn't have any understanding to be able to discern between good and evil, differeth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all. Why? Because he is not on the level to govern anything, because he's still on the level of a slave. That's why the Apostle Paul said, in malice be ye children, but in understanding be ye men. Because you have to be able to discern. That's why Yahushua said that of the children that came to him, he said, of these is the kingdom made. Because the children, they'll get into arguments and fights and all that, but it's innocent. And one minute they're fighting, the next minute they're playing again. You know? So that's how we have to become in order to get to the kingdom of heaven. You know? It says, but this particular heir, who is the Lord of all, he's no different from a servant when he's a child, but is under tutors and governors unto the appointed time of the father. So now the tutors and governors represented, back in the days, you had, people, men specifically, that would teach, and women that would teach the women, but you had men that would teach other men, the law and how to keep it, and, the different functions, so on and so forth. And this is why the scriptures say, blessed is the land when the heir is a son of nobles. Why? Because they will be brought up in the right way to be able to govern that kingdom. And pretty much that's what you see going on right now with brothers waking up, is we're being taught as nobles, even though we're peasants, we're being taught how to think as nobles, to have that ruling class mentality for what's coming. It says, even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. Which the elements of the world represents, everything that we were doing prior to coming to the truth, and also, pretty much what we were doing when we were in the world, right? It says, but when the fullness of the time was come, the Most High sent forth his son, which is Yahushua, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. And see, this is something that these wacky-chacky Christians skip right over. The reason why Yahushua came was to redeem them that were under the law. Because the law kept us in bondage. Yahushua made us free. And this is what the Apostle Paul is explaining to these Galatians, which were Israelite foreigners, that we cannot keep the law 100%. He even told the Philippians, look, I don't have my own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through faith of Yahushua. Because that's what's making us free. We're no longer in bondage underneath the law, but we keep the law to the best of our ability. See, that's the thin line that these wacky-tacky Christians try to blur out and get rid of, because they want to eat pork, they want to commit adultery, they want to be homosexuals, they want to eat shrimp and lobster. They don't want to be, have any form of guideline. They just want to be able to do whatever the hell they want. And, oh, Jesus still love me. To redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Why? Because the Most High put us away. So we became orphans. So Yahushua dying on the cross was the way that the Most High adopted us back to him. And because you are sons, the Most High has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. That's why we say the Our Father prayer. Abba Nawa Shabbat Shemayim, so on and so forth. Because Yahushua adopted us. And that adoption belongs only to the nation of Israel. As we go back and we read in the book of Romans, the 9th chapter. It says, wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of the Most High through Yahushua. So we became heirs of the kingdom of heaven to the Most High by his son, or through his son Yahushua. And this is what the Apostle Paul is explaining to them, because when you read a few chapters back, or a chapter back, he said that he marveled that they were soon removed from the grace that they were calling. So he said, who had bewitched you? Because here it is, you begun by faith, and now you're trying to be perfect through the law. It doesn't work that way. But now faith without works is dead. So there's a, it's those Old Testament Israelites got it wrong, and them plantation Christians got it wrong. Because those Old Testament Israelites say you got to keep the law perfect. The plantation Christians, they say that the law is done away with. So they're both wrong. But you have to be, the Most High has a power of balance. So the balance is what? We keep the law to the best of our ability, but in our shortcomings, Yahushua comes and gives us the grace. And that is the proper understanding of what these scriptures in the New Testament are speaking about when it speaks about grace. When it speaks about, that we don't have the righteousness by the law, but by Yahushua. But we still keep the law to the best of our ability, because even the Apostle Paul said we established the law. He said we established the law. Howbeit then, when you knew not the Most High, you did service unto them which by nature are no gods. And this is when the Israelites were in that Gentile state of mind, worshiping and doing sacrifices to these different idols. But now after that you have known the Most High, or rather are known of the Most High, how turn you again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto you desire again to be in bondage? Right. So you don't want to go back to serving those idols, because you will be in bondage, because there was a rite and a service that you had to perform to them idols, being in that so-called religion. Just like when you kept the law 100%, you had to do everything perfect by the law. So you were in bondage. There was no freedom in your mind. You were constantly under captivity, either of the Gentiles religion or whatever the case was, or trying to keep the law 100%. So this is where the Apostle Paul is breaking it down to them, so that they can understand that it's not about keeping the law 100%. It's about having the faith in Yahushua, that when we mess up, he's there, right there, to help us out. But don't overdo it, because he told them that in the next chapter. But them so-called Christians, they walk right over that. Ye observe days and months and times and years. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. Yeah, because they're trying to keep everything perfect. We can't keep everything perfect. We do the best that we can. But at the same time, we don't use the excuse of, well, we're under grace, so that woman looked good to me. I haven't committed adultery and such, so I'm gonna hit that, and then I got grace, so I'm good. No, that's straight up wickedness. Or I'm gonna eat this pork chop sandwich because no, man, that's straight up wickedness. It says, brethren, I beseech you, be as I am, for I am as you are. You have not injured me at all. You know how through infirmity of the flesh I preached the gospel unto you at the first. Yeah, because the Apostle Paul was catching hell. But still in all, in the affliction that he was going through, in the infirmities, he still preached the gospel. And my temptation which was in my flesh you despised not, nor rejected, but received me as an angel of the Most High, even as Yahushua HaMashiach. Yeah, because you received him. So how is it now that what he taught you through faith, now you're trying to keep by the law, keeping the law 100%? You can't. Where is the blessedness you spake of? For I bear you record that if it had been possible, you would have plucked out your own eyes and have given them to me. And am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Yeah, because I'm giving it to you the way it's supposed to be. These people that are telling you to keep the law 100%, they're troubling you. So because I'm cursing you off for this, am I become your enemy because I'm telling you the truth the right way? They zealously affect you, but not well. Yeah, because some of them were sincere, like the righteous Pharisees in them in Acts the 15th chapter, that said, unless the Gentiles, which are the Israelite foreigners, kept the law 100%, they were circumcised, they could not be, as a manner of Moses, they could not be saved. Which they were right in as far as being circumcised, but they were wrong because these Israelite foreigners were just freshly and newly come out. They were like newborn babes. You had to spoon feed them. You had to You have to nurture them. You have to, build them up before you can put a whole load on them. It says, yea, they would exclude you that you might affect them. Yeah, because they would rather you move out the way. Because see, they didn't want to catch hell for the Israelite foreigners, like the Apostle Paul was catching hell. He was accused of bringing heathens into the sanctuary. He was accused of being around the uncircumcision. He had a bad he went from having a great name to having a bad name for doing the right thing. You see? He said, but it is good to be zealously affected always in a good thing. Yeah, so if you are going to be zealously affected, let it be in something good. Let it be for a righteous cause. Don't let it be for your own vainglory or some other BS. And not only when I am present with you. Yeah, because this thing is not a thing of eye service. You on fire when you see an apostle or elder or camp leader or somebody else, but then when they're not around, you just a grimy individual. But as soon as brothers come around, you straighten up and you're the most pious and the most holy. That's hypocrite. That's hypocrisy. My little children, of whom I travail in birth again until Yahweh shall be formed in you, I desire to be present with you now and to change my voice, for I stand in doubt of you. Yeah, because he heard a lot of reports that he wasn't digging. It says, now this is the point here. Tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, do you not hear the law? For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons, the one by a bondmaid and the other by a free woman. Now this here, these so-called Muslims try to say that the writings of Paul are BS because he was only giving his own opinion. You have others, as we read further down into this chapter, that say that, you see, this shows you that the Bible was an allegorical book. It really wasn't real. And that's why the Apostle Paul said this, because he said that this was used as an allegory. What it was is, this is an actual story in the history that took place. And the Apostle Paul, as his manner is, because he was well learnt, he used this storyline to show the difference between being in bondage under the law, which would be representative of Hagar and her son Ishmael, which were the bond, and the freedom of grace through Sarah and Isaac, which was the son of the promise. Because he was the son of the free. Ishmael was the son of the bondwoman. So he's using the free, Isaac, to represent grace. He's using Ishmael, the servant, to represent the bondage of the law. That's all he was saying. He wasn't saying that history with Abraham and Sarah and Hagar and Ishmael and Isaac was an allegory. He was using that story in an allegorical form to paint the picture that he's speaking about between grace and captivity. It says, but he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman by what? By promise. And the Lord promised Abraham that he would give his children, his seed, singular, the promises, and that they would be established. But the problem is, when we got the first covenant, we couldn't keep the first covenant because we were not perfected. So the second covenant was given, which was sealed by the blood of Yahushua, and will be fully implemented in the kingdom, where the laws will be, and statutes and commandments will be into our inward parts, once our heart is changed, which is our mind, and our flesh is changed, to be able to establish a second covenant in the kingdom of heaven. See? And this is why we received the grace through Yahushua, because we couldn't get there on our own. It says, which things are an allegory. See? So this story that he spoke of is an allegory to the grace and the bondage. Not that the story itself did not happen and it was just, that was just symbolic. Abraham really didn't exist, but that was no. Because if you feel that way, then you're missing the whole point. And that's what them dudes at Ram were teaching. See, this was an allegory. This was not real. This was because they were bugged out, because Comfy and them bugged them dudes out. So that's what this means, things are an allegory. It means that, I'm going to say it again, Sarah, Isaac represented the freedom or the liberty of grace. Hagar, Ishmael, and the debt or servitude represented the bondage that was to be kept under the law. Because a man, if he tries to keep the law, he's under bondage under the law. He has to keep the law 100%, which is impossible. So which things are an allegory? For these are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth the bondage, which is Hagar. See? Because Hagar was what? Cast out. Let's go real quick to... First, let's go to Genesis 17 and 18. And Abraham said unto the Most High, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee." Why? Because Abraham was an old man, and he had no heirs. First, he tried to give the inheritance to his servant, Eliezer. But the Most High said, "No, I'm going to give you a son, which is going to be your heir." Salaki, brother. Kind of parched. But then when Ishmael was born, Abraham was even older. He said, "O Lord, that Ishmael might live before thee." And the Most High said, "Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant." Why? Because Abraham was waiting to pass on that inheritance that the Most High promised him when we go back to Genesis the 12th chapter. So if Ishmael is his son and all nations were supposed to be blessed, how come the Lord just didn't allow him to give it to Ishmael? Because it was promised to a single seed. And it passed from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. And with his seed after him. Because you had Abraham, you had Isaac, and then you had Jacob, and every son or daughter that came out of Jacob were the seed of that promise. As for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. And you see that they are a great nation. Them Ishmaelites out there, so-called Arabs, they are a great nation. But the covenant, what? But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and the Most High went up from Abraham. Now when we go to Genesis 21 and 9, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar. This is after Sarah gave birth to Isaac. The son which the Most High promised Abraham would be the heir of the promise. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abram, mocking. See? So he was mocking her because she was an old woman. You know, she had a baby in her old age, and he was mocking her. Wherefore she said unto Abram, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son." See? Because she was a bondwoman and her son. "For the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac." So this is why the Apostle Paul used that history as an allegory to represent the law, bondage, the grace, liberty. That's what this is talking about. So it says, let's go back. It says, "And the thing was very grievous in Abram's sight because of his son." So now let's go back and let's read this again. Galatians 4:24. "Which things are an allegory, for these are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth the bondage, which is Hagar." So if you try to keep the law, you're going to be in bondage, because Yahushua will not be of any effect to you. That grace or that liberty will not affect you, will not be able to help you if you want to be righteous by keeping the law 100%. It says, for this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all, and Jerusalem is the motherland. I don't care what them clowns say that Africa is the motherland. Africa is not the motherland. That is a farce. That is a goddamn lie that was taught by the so-called white man, the father of Egyptology. You guys talking about the white man this, white man that, but everything you have in the so-called conscious community all was set up by the so-called white man. All those books and stuff that you read and research, that was all set up by the so-called white man. How about that? The Edomites. For it is written, rejoice thou thou barren that bearest not. Yeah, and this was a reference, when you go to Isaiah 54, to Sarah. Because she didn't bear until her old age. Break forth and cry, thou that travailest not. For the desolate hath many more children than she which hath an husband. Why? Because the promise was going to go through the son that this woman was going to receive, which is Sarah. And the son that she received was who? Isaac. And he, through his son Jacob, received the promises that were given to Abraham, and they became we became a great nation, pretty much, throughout the four corners of the earth, as the sands of the sea. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of promise. See? Which shows you that these Galatians that he was speaking to are Israelites. So we are the heirs, we, brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of promise. And not everyone is a child of the promise. Let's go to Romans chapter 9. And then let me get this other one in Galatians 3, because this came to mind earlier too. And I'm going to read this one first, though, matter of fact. Let me see if I can find that. Right here. Galatians 3:15. Brethren, I speak after the manner of men, though it be but a man's covenant. Yet if it be confirmed, no man disannulleth or addeth thereto. Right, because the promise was made by what? By promise. And that promise that was made to Abraham was given before the law was even established or written down. It says, now to Abraham and his seed, singular, were the promises made. He saith not, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Yahushai. And if you could receive it, that's letting you know that Isaac is Yahushai. But also, as the law put us in bondage, Yahushai also made us free. You see? And that's what Galatians 3 is about. Yahushua making us free. But that doesn't give us license to break the law. We keep it to the best of our ability. So going to Romans 9 now. Let me put this over here. Going to Romans 9 now. And 6, it says, not as though the word of the Most High have taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel. Why? Because not all Israelites are part of the elect. Because 2/3 of them will die. And in this land of America. Neither because they are the seed of Abraham, because Abraham had many seeds. You know, he had a son by Sarah, a son by Hagar. He had sons by Keturah. But just because they were his physical seed didn't make them children. It says, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called, because there was the seed that the Lord is speaking about is the seed of the promise. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of the Most High. But the children of the promise are counted for the seed that came through what? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And no matter how many times you bring this out to these wacky tacky Christians, they're not going to get it because their conscience is seared with a hot iron. So now let's go back to Galatians 4. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of promise. But as then that he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the spirit, even so it is now. Nevertheless, what saith the scriptures? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. So that's why the Apostle Paul said that them that trouble you, the Lord's going to deal with them. Because these wicked Pharisees and them, some of them that were wicked, were trying to put the Israelite foreigners back into captivity. Because they didn't accept or receive Yahushai. And even the ones that did, they were still trying to put the Israelite foreigners back into captivity. And that's why the big argument broke out in Acts the 15th chapter about circumcision. You see? So it says, nevertheless, what saith the scripture? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. So then, brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free. And this covers a lot. This covers the law, covers the bondage, it covers grace, it covers liberty, it covers the fact that the Ishmaelites are not sons of the promise, because them so-called Arabs try to say that they are the children of the promise, and they're not. So pretty much, this is what this chapter is dealing with. And as the law put us all in bondage, Yahushua made us free through his grace and his mercy. And that's why when we read the fifth chapter and the 13th verse, for brethren, you have been called unto liberty. What is the liberty? That we're not under the curse of the law, which is death. But just because that's the case, but that doesn't mean that we do whatever we want. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, see? But by love serve one another. So just because we're under grace does not give us license to break the law. Because the Apostle Paul, again, in Romans chapter 3, said what? 3 and 31. Do we then make void the law through faith? The faith, grace, liberty, this all falls in the same thing. So do we do away with the law through faith? The Most High forbid. Yea, we establish the law, because the law is still to be established. But the scriptures say, let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. So we don't make void the law. The word for void is katargil, to render idle, unemployed, inactive, inoperative. So we don't just cast the law out, because the law is a living document. And a part of the second covenant is for what? For the laws to be put into our inward parts. So how can the law be done away with when the laws are going to be put into our inward parts? And then the word establish is hestemi, which is to cause or make to stand, to place, put, set. So pretty much to establish it, to make it stand. But we understand that we cannot keep the law 100%. This is why the Apostle Paul made this statement in Philippians 3, 8, and 9. It says, and let me get this other one that came to mind. Matter of fact, right there, beautiful. It's in the same chapter that I needed. Philippians 3 and 8. Let's start at 7. But what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Yahushua, because the Apostle Paul had a great standing among the Jews in them back then. Because his family was a notable family. He was brought up under a tutor. He knew the law perfectly. He kept the law. It says, yea, doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Yahushua my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count it but dung, that I may win Yahushua. Yeah, so that prestigious title and adoration, so to speak, that the people have for him, he cast that all away for Yahushua. And be found in him, see, in Yahushua, not having mine own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Yahushua, the righteousness which is of the Most High by faith. You see? But we still establish the law to the best of our ability. And Romans 9 and 30. What shall we say then? That the Gentiles, or the Israelite foreigners, which followed not after righteousness, which is what? The righteousness of the law, have attained to righteousness, even the righteousness which is of faith. Because this is what it's about now, faith. But we still do the works of the law to the best of our ability. And we have to keep saying that, because somehow that gets lost in translation. But Israel, which are who? The ones that knew that they were Israelites in the land of Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, hath not attained to the law of righteousness. Why not? Wherefore? Because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law. For they stumbled at that stumbling stone. And the scriptures say that no man is justified by the keeping of the law. As it is written, behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone and a rock of offense, and whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. Yeah. So this child, Yahushua, which is the son of the Most High, when he came on the scene, he was going to be a stumbling block. The angel told that to Mary. You know, he's going to stand for the rise and fall of many in Israel. You know, and he was going to be a stumbling block to them. Because if they believed on him, they would have the mercy and the grace. But if not, like Yahushua told them, wicked Pharisees and them, you're going to die in your sins. For if you believe not that I am he, you're going to die in your sins. You know, so that's pretty much the gist of Galatians, the 4th chapter. You know, it deals with the bondage of the law, which is Hagar, and the liberty of grace, which is Sarah. Okay, so with that, you know, I pray that the brother, free like water, his question was answered. Can you break down Galatians 4, please? And with that, you know, I pray that your brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say Shalom. He was brought up under a tutor. He knew the law perfectly. He kept the law, you know. It says, yea, doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Yahushua my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count it but dung, that I may win Yahushua. Yeah, so that prestigious title and